Yeah, well, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, you bet.
And so, so I'm sitting here with Rebecca Kramer, running for District 2, and I want to know what your history is here in Englewood.
I am very lucky. I have lived in Englewood nearly all my life. I grew up less than a block from where we're sitting. In grade school, I went to Maddox, and we spent summers at Denny Miller Field and down at Cinderella City and running around. Grateful we always had a couple of stay-at-home moms on the block. Well, you know, the others would work. So we always had somebody watching out for us. We had a safe place we could go. But then in 6th grade, I moved from this area to District 2. And lived there from 78 forward. So grew up, graduated high school. All of the Friday night football game after parties were at my house. Legendary. Even when I didn't show up at the game, sometimes they still had the parties at my house. But yeah, so just lived there until I went to college. Went to CSU, came back, bought a house in Englewood over near Charles Hay, and it's still in District 2. So I've had that house for 34 years.
Yes. So what was the final tipping point where you got involved and when you decided to run for campaign or for city council? I think that's 2 questions.
Yeah.
Just split it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I got back involved with the city a few years ago, living in District 2, and I'm spitting distance from Old Hamden. The last 34 years, there's been talk about doing a redesign and a revamp of Old Hamden. That all started with the complete streets, and we weren't in the neighborhood. We weren't notified of the planning about this, so I kind of came into it a little late stage. There were still some meetings that went on, but the plans that have been laid out by the city, I had serious concerns with, because I live there. I've lived since 6th grade in the medical district. There was no busing in Englewood, so I have walked back and forth through that district to middle school and to high school all these years. And we walked actually through Swedish for a long time because there used to be tunnels underneath and it was shorter to cut through the tunnels. But when they went to redo Old Hamden, they want to remove all the parking. So the businesses, we have great restaurants. We have a great little cluster of businesses. And along with that came some high density build outs. I'll talk about that in a second. But my concern is when you narrow those streets, when you narrow Old Hamden, and you build 12-foot sidewalks and you take away all the parking lanes, and then you run buses past Craig, which need additional time for loading and offloading for patients, and putting medians in the center of the street. You run the ambulances down there, which they say they don't go there, but I live there. I can tell you they do. And I spoke in front of City Council multiple times that if they narrow the lanes and they take out the parking so you can't pull over for emergency vehicles, you're going to get ambulances stuck. And whether it's 30 seconds, 90 seconds, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, people can die in an ambulance when they can't get to the emergency room. So I have serious, serious safety concerns. And plowing, you have to plow those streets for the emergency vehicles, and there's nowhere to put the snow. Yeah.
Except on the sidewalk.
Right. The 12-foot sidewalk.
In the best situation.
Yeah. And it's been said that I'm against multimodal, but the issue with multimodal is, I believe in the city of Englewood, is the same as Denver and 16th Street Mall. They had to put, the scooters aren't allowed on 16th Street Mall. It's a pedestrian mall. No, scooters are not supposed to be ridden on the sidewalks. If you go to downtown, they have scooter lanes where you are to ride your scooters in the scooter lanes. So they actually did a blocker on the 16th Street Mall so that the scooters won't work. So they can't be driven because there were too many incidences between pedestrians and scooters. So the bicycles cannot be on the sidewalks. The scooters can't be on the sidewalks. If you narrow the streets to where there's no parking, there's really no multimodal because there's nowhere for the scooters and the bikes to go when you've got people on the sidewalks and cars on the streets.
And everywhere else but downtown, I have to navigate around all these different abandoned scooters. And sometimes
Yes.
I can't get through.
The scooters and the bikes, they have done, in the last 6 months, they've done a huge press in District 2, dropping scooters and bikes all over the place. Those things are heavy. You can't even pick them up and move them off of the sidewalks for people to use them. And that goes back to the density issue. Another one of the reasons I got involved is that there has been a lot of high-density building in District 2. And it's been a different combination than what has happened down at the old Ironworks and the Crane area down off of Dartmouth across from Cushing. Massive amount of multifamily build out down there that most people in Englewood don't even know has been constructed. And then you look at the huge buildings that were built off of Oxford and Santa Fe. But if you come into District 2, we have probably the largest number of apartments, more apartments than houses. I started doing the math, but the apartment buildings far exceed the residential neighborhoods. And a number of years ago, the neighborhood was rezoned. And these small entry-level houses, the starter houses that existed in District 2, a lot of them were between Old Hampden and 285. They were nice little 700 square foot homes that people could afford to move into. They changed the zoning on that to multifamily a number of years ago. I attended those meetings in the city parks when Randy Penn was on the business group. Chamber of Commerce. When Randy Penn was on the Chamber of Commerce, I attended all of those. And they changed the single family zoning to multifamily. Then when the developers came through, they scraped all of those entry-level homes. They bought them up for a couple $100,000, scraped the lots, and then they built 3-story rooftop patio duplexes. So they bought them for a couple $100,000, then they sold the duplexes for $1.3 million a side. And then you look at what's going on at City Council and they say there's no affordable housing. What hypocrisy. To wipe out the entry-level homes and the affordable housing to build $1.3 million duplexes and then say, well, there's no affordable housing, we need to build, multifamily, high-density living because no one can afford to buy a house in Englewood. You can't destroy the thing and then use it as an excuse as to why you need to convert other areas. So there's a lot of slot homes between 5 and 12 units that were built over there, another half dozen apartment and condo complexes, all of the massive duplexes that line between Old Hampden and Hampden, and the traffic's astronomical. There was also a 14-story apartment building built across the street from Craig on Emerson, called the Emerson. And they're having problems even getting those rented out. They're offering 2.5 months free rent to sign a lease. The cost of those $3,300, $3,400 a month. But the vacancy rates on those and the Marks and Kimberly Woods and the Girard, and we have a ton of little pocket apartments all throughout there. I think the vacancy rates would shock most people.
And that's what I am impressed with when you spoke at City Council.
Thanks.
About Joe Jefferson. You said open up those boxes and see how many vacant slips there are.
I think if the city could partner with the post office, we could see truly how many vacancy. If you call the apartment complex there, you say, oh, it's 3%. We're full up, we're great. But if you actually look at the mailboxes and you can see the vacancy slips that exist, there are not necessarily in 2, but there are apartment buildings in Englewood that are 30% or more vacant. So building more is not responsible.
And when you said that, I was like, you get this.
Yeah, there's a proposed build out, it's slated to happen on the old Hobby Lobby site. And I spoke in front of council. I read the engineer's report. The the report itself said that that area could not handle any more multifamily units, that the density was such that it wasn't advisable to build any more multifamily in that area. So what did they do? They approved building another multifamily unit. And then there's no business. We have all these business spaces in the city center, but nobody is working to bring business to Englewood. There's nothing to go there to shop for. We have great activities with the summer concert series and food truck events, and I think the city center is a fantastic place to be. But if there's no business on a regular basis, it just opens it up for crime.
Yes. And so you spoke on Joe Jefferson, too.
Yes. I think Joe is great. I think he's done a great job for the city. I knew Judge Intencio before Joe Jefferson came in. I'm very proud that we have our own municipal court system. I think there's a lot that we can handle on our own that doesn't need to be shipped out to Arapahoe County. We have our own police force. We have, our own court system. And I think Joe has represented well. The problem that I really took to heart with Joe Jefferson is that I felt that he was being unfairly treated by the council. Everyone else in the city was getting their normal raise, their cost of living increases. The city went out and did the studies to raise people's incomes. That applied to everybody else, but Joe, as an elected official, was not involved in that. And I thought that there were people on council that really berated him. And he went out and got the information that was requested. He came back and he provided the information that was requested. And then to make it difficult, they wanted more information. And they said he was paid too much for the work that he did. But when you go online, and anyone can go online, it's public information on which city positions are paid how much money, and it's pretty easy to find on the website for the city. You can go and type city attorney, city manager, council member, and you can see exactly what the city pays different roles, not the person, but the title. And you can go on and look it up. And I looked at what Joe Jefferson made as opposed to some of the other salaries in the city, and I was just taken aback. I was surprised that in a city where the average salary is probably $50,000 or less, some of the salaries that we were paying for the positions. Not that we don't need to attract quality people, and I believe in paying people a good living, a good salary for what they do. But I was just kind of floored at some of the salaries that we are paying, and someone had said to me that we pay like different positions on average, sometimes 20% more than the going rate for other comparable cities. So great place to get a job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know a lot of I've known people that have worked for the city. I grew up with a lot of them. I was related to some of them. My parents went to school with some of them. So, once again, a very small, lovely community of people. And but I think the Joe Jefferson issue really I took to heart, to watch him stand up there and be berated in front of the public over his salary, to where he was, they wanted him to get down and beg for an increase. And that's just not respectful to someone that has been elected by the citizens of this city and that we value and provides a very meaningful service to us.
And he is a lovely individual.
He is. He is
a mother
lovely.
who was running a really strong restaurant.
Oh yeah, and she and I've talked. I spent many of my birthdays with her. I tell her I spent a lot of my teenage birthdays with her,
and we still
because
can't pull
that's
her away.
that's where we went to dinner at the Twin Dragon for to celebrate different family events. Yeah.
What community should be.
Yeah, very much
places.
what community should be.
So what finally had you decide to run?
Like I said, I got involved during the Code Next, and and over the last few years, like I said, the revitalization of Old Hamden. And I tried very hard to get involved. I spent a lot of personal time with the engineers, going over it, attended all of the meetings that I knew about once I knew about it. But the overdensification and the loss of the quality of life that I knew it to be in Englewood, I feel like we're choking that out of Englewood. Being involved in those things, I got to know a new community of people and a broader community of people in my own district. So it's the support of those individuals and working with them and them asking me to put my hat in the ring.
And I thank you for taking the courage to do that.
Thank you.
Yes. And I am strongly endorsing you.
Thanks.
In District 2. It's been a pleasure to run into you when we were speaking the same night at City Council. I look forward to the future.
Wonderful. Me too.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.